Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Aquarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of October 2024. I hope you are well. I'm going to be using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Here it is. Unfortunately, well, depending on your perspective, this deck is rather replete with graphic nudity, and that's something that YouTube doesn't like. So if anything of that ilk comes up, I will be covering up the offending articles, probably with my little dog here. So if that's what you see me do, that's why I'm doing it. Unfortunately, it just is modern life nowadays. So other things to tell you: if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That will be the first link in the description box below. The second link in the description box is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content, whether you're watching for your, Sun, Moon, Ascendant, Mars, Venus, whatever. Hang out with a group of people who are frankly really quite extraordinary and maybe even learn some things. So if that sounds like that might be of interest to you, you know what to do with those links. Right. Let's get on with the reading, shall we? Can I have 3 cards for Aquarius, please? What's going on with Aquarius right now? Right, so in your recent past, we have both the Strength card and the Empress card reversed. That's Leo and Taurus, Libra, respectively. What about current energy for Aquarius, please? Okay, we have the Knight of Swords, the Queen of Cups, the Sun, and the Knight of Cups. Now, I don't usually take this many cards, but I do feel like what you are experiencing at the moment is rather complex and probably requires the extra cards. Normally, I would just go for 1 per position, right? But, there's some stuff going on here. So, what's coming towards Aquarius for October, please? Oh, goodness. Right, we have... This is mental. Right, we've got the Justice card, Libra, in the Major Arcana. We have the King of Pentacles, which represents Taurus. And then we have also the 5 of Swords, which is actually Venus in Aquarius right there. So let's put that like that. I mean, it's probably worth saying at this point, Aquarius, that Pluto is currently retrograding in your 12th house. And when you have a planet that is all concerned with, dredging the depths of things, and then you put it into a house that is canny deep, that lots of things are going to be coming up to the surface, and they probably aren't making a lot of sense right now. Right? It's about trying to find what it is that is connecting them all. At the bottom of the deck, as I was fairly certain was going to show up before I even started doing anything, we have you. We have the Star card right there. Now, there are so many fucking cards here. I'm going to have to shimmy everything over so we can actually make some space. There we go. There's the Star card. So, before I even started recording, some of you will know I do a meditation before I start any reading. And it's quite odd. The titles have been coming before the readings. And yours here is Journeys in Awareness. I've just been hearing them while I've been doing these meditations, and just the point of the fact that Pluto is dredging your 12th house at the moment. There is a lot here about awareness, and we see it actually in the Sun card right here. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Let's start over here and work our way across so we can try and make some sense of what it is that you're experiencing at the moment. So, tell me about Strength and the Empress reversed. Okay, we have the 8 of Cups, the 9 of Wands, and the Knight of Swords. The second time the Knight of Swords is showing up for you because it's over here. Can I have just 1 additional card for this middle bit, please? What do we have to say about all of this? That's 2. Right, well, we've got Sun reversed and we've got Queen of Pentacles reversed. There's Capricorn right there. And what about over here? Justice, King of Pentacles, We've got the Seven of Swords, another Aquarius card, and we've got the Temperance card. You know what? I'm going to leave it right there because, frankly, we're just going to end up with so many cards on the table. It's going to be difficult to follow what's going on. Now, rather appropriately, we have at the bottom of this deck the Two of Swords. Now, if you've followed my readings before, you'll understand the interpretation that generally I associate with this, and that is it's about those parts of us within ourselves that are, for whatever reason, screened off from ourselves, such that we cannot consciously kind of connect with what that is. I mean, the meaning of this card is decision making, actually, is what it talks about. But we need to look at the symbolism of the rest of the cards. So what we've got is water, representing emotion in the background. We've got moon, representing intuition, in that kind of way that we can be tapped into something that is bigger than ourselves. But here is this woman with her back to both of those things, and these are resources that are at her disposal that, for whatever reason, are not being incorporated into this decision-making process. Then, additionally, she is blindfolded and she's holding on to two swords. We're trying to make a logical decision here when actually the intuition and the emotion has some sort of input that it wants to bring in. And I do... The kind of key phrase that I've always used for this card, because it's the one that makes the most sense to me symbolically, is kind of like willful blindness, which sounds a little bit blunt and a little bit harsh, and that's not really what I mean about it. I'm talking about the kind of psychological tricks that our mind plays on us so that we can, so that our ego can persevere and we can continue to be the hero in our own story. So we will screen off things that are inconvenient to our decision-making processes, such as perhaps emotion or intuition. But there's something about this that suggests to me that were these incorporated, the decision would be made one way or the other. There would be no need to weigh the difference between these two frankly identical swords. This is not actually a decision that needs to come from the mind, it's coming from somewhere else. But because we can't see all the pieces of the puzzle, we don't know what we don't know, we can't see what we can't see. What we've got is an obfuscation, a kind of psychological deadlock with ourselves, or a process of discovery, right? Journeys in awareness seems to me to be quite an appropriate title. We could maybe call it Adventures in Awareness or something like that, right? But certainly journeys, because there's some travelling going on here. Now, whether that's time travel for you as you're, going back and looking at various events and circumstances that you have experienced throughout your life, or whether it's just a state of present reassessment of where you are right now. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. It probably will vary between all of you. Remember that this is a collective reading. So, God, there's so much. There's so much going on here, Aquarius. I feel for you. So, in the recent past, and let's put a time frame on that, we're looking probably no further away than 6 weeks back from where you are right now, but it could be as recently as when you got out of bed this morning. At some point in the recent past, it feels like something has been closed down. It feels like you're not as powerful as you would like to feel. You don't feel like there's any growth happening, there's no expansion happening anywhere, and perhaps even your creativity itself is struggling to make contact with maybe it just doesn't feel like it's really there at the moment. It's almost like the tap's been turned off for one reason or another. And the Empress can also represent to me things like gratitude and abundance and these sorts of things. But in any event, when the Empress is reversed, we have a situation whereby we are feeling like things are just not flowing in the way that we would like them to do. If the Strength card is reversed, then things are not growing the way that we would like them to do. And we've got more of this movement that I alluded to before happening here underneath the cards. Now, what's very clear to me at this point, and even, just taking into account the fact that Pluto is retrograding into your 12th house, I forget the date where he stations direct and starts moving forwards again. Perhaps somebody could drop it in the comments for me, because I think that would be a useful piece of information for Aquarians right now. I think it's sometime in October. That would make sense, wouldn't it? But by and large, you have most of October in this space where we're kind of dredging up things that are sitting so deep within us that to all intents and purposes we were completely oblivious to their existence. But this journeying that I was talking about here, we've got the Eight of Cups, we've got the Nine of Wands, and we've got the Knight of Swords. And I do feel that although this Eight of Cups is showing up in the upright here, the fact that the Knight of Swords is rushing to meet him gives this sense that there is something that has been left behind, but it's almost like the job hasn't been done entirely to satisfaction, right? Entirely to be able to close something out. You know, obviously we've got more numbers that follow after 8. We've got 9, we've got 10 representing an end. But this is the point where a deadlock of confusion has been breached and we're able to start moving forwards. But this is saying to me that there's awareness that there's more. There's awareness that there are more things that are operating here, and this Knight of Swords is almost like a rush of consciousness going to meet that, to say, we actually need to talk about what it is that you think you've moved away from. And when I say we, I mean that's the collective we, as in you, essentially, and all the various parts of you. We need to come back and talk about this, because something feels like it's changed. You know, when we move on from some sort of situation emotionally, when we finally put it down, to all intents and purposes, we feel like we've drawn a line under that. And that's good, right? We're ready to move on with the rest of the things. We've created some space. This Eight of Cups, we kind of pulled our emotions back to us. And, you know, under the light of the eclipse, as this chap is doing here, we're setting off on a road. But the Nine of Wands is here. And the Nine of Wands, whilst speaking to the way that your actions play out, right, and the responsibility that you have for your own particular actions, and perhaps, you know, the erection of boundaries and the maintenance of boundaries and all those things that we associate with the Nine of Wands. It's like this led to this, but now it's time for some sort of reassessment of it. Now you'll note, like I said, that the Eight of Cups is in the upright, it is not in the reverse. So we're not going back to a situation that you've left behind, but it's more like kind of following a trail that you've left for yourself, where in light of new information that is coming up, whether that's coming up by way of bends and twists in your awareness, increase in your insights and all that sort of thing, to coming back to this point where you moved away from something and saying, actually, there's a whole new way to interpret what this is. And I feel like I need to work out what that is, because I feel powerless, because I'm not feeling creative, because probably not feeling terribly grateful for everything at the moment. And we need to see what it is that we missed, because that's what this feels like. It feels like there's been a skipped step somewhere that has led to something not being closed out the way that it was supposed to be in the first instance, but that has also now started to put the turn the screws on things like your own personal power, your own growth, your own expansion, certainly your creativity. And we need to go work out what it is that wasn't quite aligned up properly in order to complete in the way that it was supposed to. Now, when we move into your current energy, like, wow, there's the Knight of Swords again. He's on his side. Queen of Cups on her side. The Sun on its side. The Knight of Cups on its side. Now, when cards show up reversed, sometimes they can mean the exact opposite of what they mean in the upright. Sometimes they can speak to blocks or delays on things of that nature within our current experience. For you to have every single one of these coming on its side, though, means one of two things. Either we are in a process of shifting from upright to reversed, or vice versa. Or the energies simply have not committed either way yet. It can be a blend of the two. And I do feel like what we're getting with all of these cards going sideways is this kind of feeling a little bit like you're chasing your own tail, in terms of the nugget that cracks everything wide open, right? Bear in mind that this Two of Swords is still very much operational for you, and so we've got this sense that there's still something that's just kind of eluding us a little bit. We've got this this mental travel here by the Knight of Swords, who's trying to go back and reassess what happened here, because something just didn't quite work properly. I would not go as far as to say something got fucked up. It's just that it did not complete properly, and now we have the consequences of that are flowing out through the life that you're living right now. Right? The attempt to try and find an answer, and that answer being elusive to you. And so the Knight of Swords is traversing every which way, right? Time and space and everything, trying to work out where something went wrong, so we can just change that, you know, that one thing, for the want of a nail and all that sort of stuff. And kind of going back to see where there was a horse that did not have a shoe because it needed a nail, and putting that nail in so that things move differently. This is you know, the kind of time travel that we see in science fiction programs is probably a little way off yet, if possible at all. But we do have the capacity to completely change our perspective, our idea of reality, our emotional state, by renegotiating the idea of what our life story actually is. Right? Looking for the things that we tell ourselves on repeat that actually aren't really borne out by the evidence, as we've seen in our lives, other than when you have repeated it to yourself, right? And thus kind of solidified that particular set of thought patterns. Now, I'm not talking necessarily specifically about maladaptive behaviors or you know, depression or any of these things. I mean, you might be swimming along okay at the moment, but it's just okay. It's not like expansive and beautiful and wonderful and passionate. And it feels like there's just something off, and this need to find out what it is, so that you can open all of the doors that are in front of you and choose to walk through them, is something that's coming through very strongly. So, you know, we've got two cards of the emotional here, and I know the emotional stuff has been on your mind quite a lot recently, and moreover, the way that we can open a door that has been long since closed on things of an emotional nature, right? We've got water is by its very nature kind of taking into itself at all times, which is quite difficult for fire signs and air signs sometimes to negotiate, right? Being outwardly expressive elements as they are. But this is the bit of you that needs tweaking. It's what you take into yourself, as per the Queen of Cups, how you process all of those things internally, how you make sense of how you feel. But on the other side of the scale, we have the Knight of Cups, who is engaged in the act of giving back what what flows in excess within ourselves. We can choose to hand over to other people. We've got the Knight of Swords again, journeying around in the awareness, both the emotional and the intellectual and the experiential, and we're seeing them all here, trying to ultimately bring together all of these bits of information so that the sun can actually shine on the corner of your mind that is very, very dark, very, very dim, very unilluminated at this point, because for one reason or other, for whatever reason, it needed to be screened off in order for you to continue to be functional. Now, these clarifiers down here are very, very interesting, because they point us towards the fact that the reason why this is within you in shadow, why it is not illuminated with the light of your intelligence on things, is a simple matter of the fact that in some way or another that you needed, the investment in self has not happened. Now, for me, the Queen of Pentacles, as well as representing Capricorn, talks about self-care. She's talking about how you invest in yourself, how you nurture yourself, how you give yourself what you need. I think it's really interesting that we have several queens on the table when we understand that Aquarius, as a fixed sign, usually stands in the place of the king, at least in the way that I read the cards, right? So the Queen being the force that attracts towards her and then makes sense of actions in the case of the Queen of Wands, emotions in the case of the Queen of Cups, where our resources are being employed or deployed, internally or externally, in terms of the Queen of Pentacles, but then also understanding the value of what it is that we hold. I mean, all of this is kind of pointing to a certain level of obliviousness about your own personal value, Aquarius, that doesn't really chime with who it is that you're turning into and, you know, who you will yet become. And at this point is making that rather discordant sound loud enough for you to go, something needs to be revisited here. I need to go back into myself and work out what exactly it was, whether it was a past event, whether it was a particular relationship, whether it was a long-standing relationship or some sort of one-off event, right, that has contributed to this state whereby I am perhaps completely divorced from my own emotions. I don't know how to receive, and I really don't know how to give as a result. You know, maybe I give, but I give from a place that is incredibly unhealthy, and I don't choose to retain anything for myself first, right? I haven't worked on there being a self-replenishing well of emotional stuff, such that whatever is left over is then what I can show up and give to people. And that will constantly and consistently diminish your energy until you get to a point where you just snap and you say, enough, I can't do this anymore, this is awful, right? Better to have this kind of this internal awareness, and where necessary, the venting system that stops the pressure building up too hard. You know, this is a very interesting state to be in, because I don't feel like you are struggling. I don't feel like you are suffering. I don't feel like the universe feels like it's kicking the shit out of you, but it does feel like there is an awful lot of internal turmoil going on at the moment. And you know, you might be able to attribute some of it to external life events that are going on, but I really do feel like deep down, Aquarius, you know damn well that's got nothing to do with it at all. It's like something's been dislodged internally, and it's kind of like a piece of floating bone, right? It's floating around, it's digging in things here and there and everywhere, and you're like, like, I have a desire to do something, for example, to extend the metaphor, like something that's going to require all of my joints to be in good order, right? I'm going to do something physical, I'm going to lift things, I'm going to get good at a particular kind of sport. What I really don't need is some sort of splinter of bone that is floating around in my joints, which at some inopportune moment is just going to jab me in a nerve centre and have me drop my racket or drop the ball or drop my hands, you know, whatever it is. And I can't see this in any other way than preparing for greatness is what I just heard, but that's weird. We're going to need to give that some kind of context, right? There is the purpose is beginning to encroach upon your space. Now, it may be expressing itself right now as a fear or whatever, that actually we have no purpose, or we have not particularly identified a purpose. Perhaps the nature of what purpose is and what purpose stands for and how you would even recognize it when it shows up is something that you're also kind of mulling around. It's the sense that there's something much more, but we feel kind of divorced from it somehow, right? So this purpose is showing up, but maybe it's showing up in a feeling of a lack of purpose. And it's the tweaks in awareness, it's the tweaks in the emotion, it's the tweaks in the consciousness that are going to realign you, and there is a realignment going on here, in order to properly understand, be authentic, show up as you actually are, and start doing what the fuck it is that you're here to do, Aquarius. Because, you know, in choosing to be born under this sign, and being alive, conscious and sentient, as you are right now, as Pluto is about to, on the 19th of November, move into your sign permanently. Like, it's like Pluto's last hurrah is going through your 12th house and making sure that anything that is anything that has the capacity to be restrictive is removed. Now, if this is a bone fragment, a bone splinter, some little spur that's broken off and is just kind of floating around in the fluid of your joints, quite simply it needs to be excised, it needs to be removed. It needs perhaps to be broken down with frequencies, who knows, right? Treat it metaphorically however you will, but understand that the emotions and the intuition, these two things, are extremely important for you to master before you have the opportunity to really engage with your purpose fully. But it's here. Like, I really do feel like it's kind of knocking at the door on you. And we quite often feel, well, it's the same, right? It's darkest before the dawn, right? It's that coldest point of the night is literally just before the sun comes up. Anything that's rattling around in the 12th house is always going to feel uncomfortable. There's no way of getting around it. But like I said, I don't feel like it's a sharp stabbing pain. It's just more of an irritation and something that needs to be shifted around. Anyhow, when we move into October, we have the Justice card. Now, this is kind of a big deal. It's actually a card that's been coming up quite a lot recently, and it does talk about balance and equilibrium and all those things that we expect. You can speak to legal cases, court situations, you know, any kind of situation whereby justice and fairness are flagged as parts of this situation. But for me, the Justice card also represents very clearly karma and karmic paths. Right? It represents the consequences of our actions so far and the potential for us to incur new consequences of actions moving forwards. Now, that kind of sounds a little bit terrifying, except when you think about the fact that karma is totally neutral, and all we have in a state of karma is consequences of actions or inactions playing out. Karmic paths say this is something that we are supposed to experience, this is something that we're supposed to learn from, grow from, and this is something that takes us closer to what our soul is looking to achieve here in this lifetime, whether we enjoy that in the moment or not. The thing is for you, and it's this whole thing which is why it feels to me like purpose is knocking on the door for you, Aquarius, because we've got the King of Pentacles there, right? We've got the first expression of masculine energy that is associated with the doing of a thing. You know, the queens are very passive, like I said before. They take into themselves and they process, they make sense of, and then what they come up with gets passed on to the king. The king actions that in some sort of way. I mean, the King of Wands, it's through his very actions. With the King of Swords, which is you, Aquarius, it would be about the decision processes, the decisions that they make as a result of what it is that they have understood and comprehended. King of Cups would be about how emotionally expressive, the act of emotional mastery, right? And contrary to, you know, opinions of some people, I don't feel like I feel like the King of Cups and the King of Swords actually have a canny amount in common, and that isn't really spoken about that often, in so much as they are both masters of emotion in one way or another. Now, the King of Swords generally does that by pushing all of his emotions to one side and not allowing them to be involved in the impartial decision-making process that he is making. But I would bring you back here, right? The King of Cups is not an emotional sobby mess who wears his heart on his sleeve. You know, he is driven by by a healthy emotional expression that has been mastered rather than ignored. And where necessary, the King of Cups too can put his emotions to one side. You can't do that if you mastered some aspect of this, right? But the King of Swords is about the dominance of the mind. The King of Cups will be about the dominance of the heart. And what I feel is going on here for you is this, you know, this synthesis of information that's kind of battering you around, where you're like, what do I really think? Who really am I? What am I here for? What am I about? What am I supposed to do? What can I not see about myself right now? And like I said, this King of Pentacles showing up here is the first king, the first outward expressing energy that we have, and it's about building something. The King of Pentacles also talks about responsibilities and duties and those sorts of things, right? But wherever the King of Pentacles is involved, like, we've got something fairly fucking tangible that can be perceived by other people. King of Cups, a little bit ethereal, you know. The King of Swords even sometimes a little ethereal. What we've got here is something really solid that is planning for the future. King of Pentacles can, you know, refer to banks and loans and, you know, the legacy banking system. But it can also speak to property and land and, you know, what you do with your resources, how you invest all of your resources. And it seems to me that, like, having gone through this situation here and understanding what this is all about, there comes a point now in October where it's time to make good on what you have understood. Queen of Pentacles playing a really significant part in this. Whether this is by way of the value that you now perceive about yourself but you recognise that you haven't your entire life, or where it is that your energy is going. Has it been too much in work? Has it been too much in other people? Has it been lacking in yourself? And this seems to me to be speaking about how you start creating a future that you're actually excited about, you're actually excited to participate in, because you feel completely aligned and connected with whatever that is. Now, you see this Venus in Aquarius card here, I feel like this is on the turn for you, because we're going from a place where your thinking has been in very straight lines and it's been kind of obvious, but it's been coming from here. It's been coming from this place of not allowing your emotions or intuition to have anything to say anywhere. Thus, being stuck in a state of not really mastering your emotions in the way that you need to in order to become a fully well-rounded person. It doesn't mean that you lose any of your mental acumen or your mental acuity. It just means that there's more information to come through to allow you to synthesize, to come up with a better decision-making process, a better judgment than you have been up until this point. And a lot of what this is, and a lot of how this is playing out, is in the need to start mapping out how this new version of you is showing up in the future. Now, I often say that the Five of Swords, it can be about that internal mental conflict about something. It kind of being pulled in two ways. If you've got an internal narrative that is kind of shitty, and most people do, then in all likelihood, you're talking yourself out of things. You have been talking yourself out of things that you would like to do, or you feel like the way that you'd like to put yourself out there for a long time in a particular direction. Because what I'm not saying is that you're not perfectly capable of being successful in any field that you engage in, but we're talking about something that is an order of magnitude bigger than anything that you have achieved hitherto. Hence the Star card, but also the Star card as an expression of Aquarius energy, speaking to you and your identity and how you are out there in the world. I mean, Pluto's about to go over, if you are if you're an Aquarius ascendant watching this, 19th of November, Pluto is entering your first house, and that is a life-changing experience. I'm a Capricorn ascendant. I can testify that the last 16 years has been quite the experience, and I can, sometimes it's been subtle, sometimes it's been anything but the things that I'm doing now and the way that I approach life now is so entirely different to 2008. I can't even begin to tell you, and a lot of that is down to Pluto and Pluto's influence in my first house. So in terms of the way that you see yourself, that is going to change, but he needs a nice foundation to work from going through your 12th house, as he has been. Well, he's sat on the anaretic degree of Capricorn right now. So the most powerful degree of your 12th house, your dreams, your subconscious space, your karma, past life shit, where, you know, the deeply, deeply held psychological stuff that is by definition kind of screened off from the visibility or the ability to perceive by the first house, right? I don't know why I pointed at that for the first house. It's obviously not the first house, but it's that conscious awareness that I associate with the first house. That's what I'm talking about there. So as your view of self is beginning to change, your view of value is starting to change. And, you know, this might not actually just simply be about value of self. I do think that's a huge part of this, Aquarius. But it might actually be about the value of things that you didn't value before that you are now seeing are increasingly necessary for doing well in the future. You know, you only have to have a look at the news to see where there is huge instability in all things. Like, there's not just one thing that's falling apart. You see it right across the board. Everything's tremoring, everything's getting ready to fall down in some sort of way. By way, you know, structures and the things that we've come to rely on now being something kind of other than what they are. So, in this instance, we're kind of aligning ourselves with the new. I guess in some ways, Aquarius, it's like this is giving you permission, if you ever fucking needed it and you don't, to be absolutely uncompromisingly you, but like unleash that galactic side of you that is quite often difficult for other people to get their head around. But you need to do it tempered by mastery of emotion. This is what stops your energy from being cold and experimental and creating casualties, Aquarius. It's that balancing mechanism. You might even suggest that Leo itself might be a balancing mechanism for you, because you're here to do big things, and those big things are now here. They're right in front of you. They're knocking on the door. They're saying, Aquarius, come align with your purpose now, please. But make sure that you're not getting too cold about it. Make sure that you're bringing in what you are not currently thinking about so that you can make good judgments moving forwards. We've got the Temperance card underneath there, which is a card of balance and alignment and equilibrium in just the same way that the Justice card is. But you'll notice that we have this water at the bottom of the card. Now, the angel depicted actually has their foot in the water and their foot on the ground, right, representing the ability to be grounded, but also be in one's emotions, very much like I was kind of talking about, like the King of Cups there, right? But the angel is also pouring from their own cup to their own cup, right? They're taking care of their own emotional business because they have conquered some incredible adversity, right? And this is actually, I think, the last wave of that's happening here for you. But the other thing that the Temperance card talks about, and this I feel very, very strongly for you, is this kind of divine guidance, divine orchestration, divine timing. All of these now coming into play at a point where you seem to be allowing yourself to be more open than you ever have been before and able to receive what that is, in order that you now take a risk on being part of what the future really is, being in charge, right? When it comes to signs like you, Aquarius, and signs like Sagittarius, right, sometimes it seems to me that their MO is about making sure that they're not doing what everybody else is doing, right, and kicking back about even the thought of doing what everybody else is doing. And that's fine, but it does lend itself then to a highly reactive energy, which, whether you like it or not, then actually does depend on what everybody else is doing. We don't like that, but far better for you to look around, employ the galactic brain, right, and go, Where is humanity going? What does humanity need moving forwards? And how is everything that is in my head, my heart, aligned to be able to help create that for people? Because in the first instance, you have to show up fully as who you are, and you're in the process of really working that out. But you also have to believe that your connection is strong enough, that the messages and the guidance that you're being given are good for you to follow. And I think all of this is just simply about opening you up so that you can receive those. It was just said that emotion and intuition are not the same thing, but they do run parallel. And where emotions are untended, uncared for, where they're left to just do their own thing, or they're put into a box and completely disregarded, they create this kind of field around them which is very noisy. It's like white static, and you can't hear what the intuition is saying because everything is coming off these emotions here. Whereas if you can get all of that mastered, get it into alignment with your intuition, they can inform then you can hear what's going on in the intuition over here. It's funny how I always associate intuition with the left hand. Where they're like, that's the hand that you take in. The right hand's what you give out. Right. But whenever I'm doing that, I'm always like, this is intuition over here. But the strange fact. It's time to start taking some risks on the bigger ideas, the bigger visions that you've had, Aquarius, because the energies are supporting the pursuit of these. The energies are very much approving of the vulnerability that is implied by you putting everything that you have into putting your whole self out there. But there is also a corresponding benefit for everybody else. And so the question is, what is it that you dream about? And then how, with the energy of the King of Pentacles, are you able to start bringing that through? Because that's what's about to start happening. It's the bringing it through. So anything that's sitting in the way of that, it's time for it to be gone. And I do think this is what's been going on here. This feeling very significant indeed. October feels like a weirdly significant month, and I'm not sure why. Obviously, we've got things like eclipses going on and all that sort of stuff. But the energy just seems to be a little bit funky. And I don't know if that's a good funky or a bad funky, but it's certainly very strong. And I'm seeing a lot of this kind of energy going on between the signs. Like, you're the fourth one that I've read for so far, and there's a lot of this. And so it felt to me like August changed a lot, and I also don't know why August specifically changed things, but it seems to me that it did. Then September's been the month where all of that's been kind of bedding in, and we're synthesizing it and trying to make sense of what we've understood. October seems to be the month where things are really starting to happen because we're making them happen, unimpeded by anything that might have held us back previously. So this is a really good month to allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to imagine, and then get on board with that vision. How do you make that? How do you make that happen? Sorry about the noise in the background. It's constant construction work going on at the moment. So anyway, so I will leave it there. I'm going to go over to the extended now. If you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. You can do that on Circle. You can do that on Vimeo. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. But if that's not for you, that's absolutely fine. I wonder if I might... no, I'll save that for the extended. Never mind. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.